Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Grammy Award-winning soprano, voice teacher, and arts advocate, my good friend, my good sis, Miss Karen Slack.
Yes. Hey, everybody. Everybody. I'm on my casual today. So,
She has the Leontine Prize on today. We love Mother.
yes, we love Mother. Yes, yes, yes.
So today we are going to talk about one of my favorite singers, the Queen of Funk, the Human Horn. She's been called Miss Chaka Khan. So, all right, I'm just going to start off with this one clip. Okay, it's the earliest clip we have of her singing. I believe she is 18 here. One second.
Who you talking to? If your concentration, 'cause your baby is miles and miles and miles away.
All right, so one of her favorite singers is Aretha Franklin, and she uses her voice pretty similarly. As a singer, do you hear somebody and be like, I want to make that sound, and then that's how you become influenced? Or do you say, okay, I recognize my voice can do bloom. Here's somebody else that can do it, and that's how I mold my sound.
I think they're both things are true. I think when you hear a singer, you mimic them. When you're young, that's your gauge, that's your entry point. And you're like, I want to sing like this person. So then you start to mimic the sounds that they make, mimic the characteristics of the way that they sing. And then also your voice, when you figure out that your voice can do the very same things that they do effortlessly, right? Or then you sort of try to start to find your own style through learning the craft or learning more songs or having things written for you. But I think that they're both true. I mean, when I think about my favorite singer, Jessie Norman. Of course, I'm an opera singer. Like I'm like when I heard her, I wanted to sing "You Could Tell the World" like her, and like all of the things, and Leontine Price, and listening to her sing Aida, and just mimicking the sounds when I was 16 years old. That's your entry point. So yes, and the way that Aretha did through you could tell the influence of Shaka Khan and stayed throughout her career. She just was able to hit those high, and her voice was higher than Aretha.
Okay. And so speaking of high notes, a lot of people say Shaka Khan doesn't have a head voice. So I'm going to play a clip and then I will ask my question one second.
She can do no wrong in my eyes. I don't care what they say. It's like her and Fantasia. I don't care what they say about them.
I want chosen to
She does have she when she prepare your do that's her voice. But when she goes into the high note, she just does them open like a music theater girl.
Yes, okay. And so which leads me into my next question. I've heard I've heard some people use the term, depending on the pedagogy books, coordinated chest voice, which means like a head voice that sounds like a chest voice. So I don't know if that's how you've learned that term. Is that
Mm-mm.
how did you learn it?
What the
Coordinated chest, or it was like a head voice that sounds like a chest voice.
I don't think head voice sounds like chest voice. Like carrying your chest up
Hmm.
is one thing, right? And I'm no pedagogue, so I let the people that went to school to do that to talk about those things. But there's only okay, when you hear Patti LaBelle when she was 16 and she's saying you'll never walk alone. Like though, you know what I mean? Maybe that's what they're talking about.
Hmm.
Carrying the chest up, but you go into the other registers, the mix and then the head, like it's a combined type
Yeah.
of thing. But it also is a very, again, if you do not stay in the resonance, there's just no way for it to even for the registers to carry, right? You have to stay in that really compressed, small yang 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 part of the voice high. You can do it low as well. I don't know. I let the pedagogues talk about that, but there is something that happens at the top. There's no way you're carrying chest voice all the way up like
Oh
that.
no, I think okay, so the way Leon when I asked Leona Mitchell about it, another
Uh-huh.
singer, I said, "Did you do that in chess?" Well, she says, "Oh God, no." She said, "But what I actually can do is make the head do something or to make the head voice sound like chest, or essentially it's keeping the chest voice engaged."
Connected.
Um, yeah, keeping it engaged when you're going up. So I know, like, for example, like a Whitney Houston per se, like you'll hear a color switch or a Patti LaBelle. You hear
Mhm.
that switch with Shaka Khan and even Jennifer Holliday when she uses head voice. It all sounds still like,
But that's that column of sound that I talk about.
mhm,
Keeping the column open
yeah.
so you can have access to both parts of your voice.
So
You
I
don't
guess
you
like
don't
how,
have power without chest voice.
mhm.
There's no power without the connection. And then there's no height and beauty, right? And colors without the head voice. You have to have both of them.
Okay, so I guess what is she doing to keep it, I guess, dark like the rest of her voice instead of like the brighter quality that most people associate with a head voice?
Because she's not sticking it necessarily in her nose all the way, I don't think. It's like right behind the nose, as we say, right behind the ears.
Okay.
When you stick it in the nose and it gets nasally, like the way music theater people sometimes sing.
Yes.
Like when you stick it in your nose, that's just like no, that's not singing with resonance. It's just shoving it in your nose.
Okay. And so then one second, here's a clip. So something I think is interesting is that like Shaka in her early career did not end up sounding like the horn that we initially would know her to sound like. So something I think is interesting is that in like the 70s at the start, you heard it a little bit in the first clip I played. She turns the horn on, as I will call it, turns the horn on around E and F at the top of the staff. For a lot of women, for Aretha, I hear it around E flat, depending on the vowel. But what is she doing at that point in the range to like turn on that sound?
I had to think about that because I never thought about her voice like that. I never thought about it that like technical in that way. What I know is that some people say she overuses that part of her instrument. It's always like the default to go up, and to access that that quality of sound and that type of voice. It's like that, like when babies, they yeah, it's that same position that babies use. That's why they can sing forever. Again, I don't know who taught her that, but that's the reason why she still can do it 50 years later, right? It's just it is not on the throat. It's above it, right? But it's behind the nose kind of really, really high placement, really, really where the chords are coming together and in the resonance. Like it's above the chord. When you sing on the chord, that's when you have vocal damage. The chords get so thick and you lose your range. But when they're together and they're really kind of together and they're vibrating and you are singing up in that higher registration, you can sing it like that forever. You really can. Now why she does it a lot, it's just her form of expression, I think.
Mhm.
You know,
And
people
once,
say she overuses it, but
well, yeah. So actually,
sometimes she sings sharp at the top of her voice.
I always thought she was flat because well, I know she's never in the center of the pitch. It's like
Correct.
But because what I thought was that like I noticed with a lot of women, like you hear some kind of color switch around between E flat and F. And so I was like, okay, I guess they are taking less of the voice to like navigate, the passaggio.
Mhm.
Um, but so as you know, she's been pretty transparent about her drug use. Um, And so I will play this clip of her like at the height of her drug use, and then there's only two more things after that, and then we're done. But I will play this clip and then I'll put some context around what happened after her career. After in her career.
Now, see what she does? She flips into the head voice for the chords to come to for her to get the notes. She
Yeah.
doesn't see that wide open. She can't do it.
Mm-hmm. But that's actually so this is like around 84 through the when I Feel For You is a big hit, her drug use increases. So she says in her book, she was always hoarse. She was always hoarse. So that's like an example of it. So something I noticed like when she's in this voice, the voice just always sounds in the back.
Hmm.
Like it just can't, I guess, come forward. But something that I think is interesting is that like in other parts of this concert, just in other clips, the head voice actually still works. So like how she likes to sing,
Hmm.
um, that the all the chest and everything, that doesn't necessarily work, but she can still like want to give you a good E or oo vowel in
Hmm.
head voice. How does that work?
Because the chords have to come together. When they don't, the air comes through, right? When you're up there screaming and yelling, and especially when the chords are swollen. Obviously, the um the edges of the chords are very swollen. That's the reason why you have the hoarse sound. So if they're coming together, you can see it like they're not quite coming together, right? And you're trying to make the sound, you're going up for the and it can't come together. When you go up to the whoo, they have to come together for the sound for them to vibrate. And so what the head voice does is it gives you the access and the support that you need for them to come together. If not, they're like this and you get all the crap in the air coming through and everything. And also when you're screaming, you're forcing people, you can only push the chords together, but for so much longer before the wear and tear. But anyway, I mean, I do that when I'm not in my optimum best on my days, and I have to really rely on my head voice to bring in to gives me ease of singing, a little bit more head and not so much chordal pressure. Because people think pushing helps. No, pushing, forcing sound.
Okay. And so keeping that song in mind, in 1989, she has so of course she develops nodules. Um, because she said the drugs, the singing on the drugs. So she says in her book she had no highs, no lows, just a few notes in the middle. So I guess that's essentially a non-functioning voice. Um, so she goes to Seth Riggs. I don't know if you know who that is.
Mm-mm.
Seth Riggs, like vocal coach, I guess. Yeah, vocal coach to the stars. He's worked with Michael Jackson, Michael Jackson's teacher, Stevie Wonder's teacher, Natalie Cole's teacher. And I will play a clip of her singing Ain't Nobody, the same phrase before and after she went to him. And I will circle back one second.
Feeling most with treasure. And I love to be with you. Ain't nobody so deep with you. Ain't nobody
I would say over the course of her career, and I have a whole essay written up about it. She brings that horn sound, starting at that she used to bring at the top. She brings it all the way down throughout the entire voice, and so that's after she does the voice teaching type thing. So that is two completely different, like to my ears, voices and sounds.
Not to me.
Oh, really?
It just is a higher note. She sang higher. She was able to access the. It sounded like what I saw in the first clip was that her tongue was really kind of high on the sides and the back.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she had a little bit more closed off space. And then after she started rebuilding her instrument, she found all these upper partials of her voice. He
Hmm.
obviously opened up her voice and got her
Yeah.
freed. That second sound like it didn't have any tongue necessarily tension or pressure that was adding to it at all. It
Hmm.
felt very high and very, very resonant in the manner that all high notes should sound.
Okay. Because I know like I guess, but I know his technique, he does a lot of, because Natalie Cole went to him and she came out sounding a little bit like that as well. And so I guess to take that sound throughout the entire column of sound, I guess it is to, because he does say like the technique helps free up the voice, create one unified sound and
Mhm.
like open up the top. So
Mhm.
how does that, as opposed to how she was singing beforehand, help with that?
I think that when the tongue is in the way and the jaw is in the way and use the support. When you
Mhm.
lack support in your body, your tongue and your jaw comes in place. We don't want that, which also constricts the breath moving into the right resonating places so that you can actually have the top notes. Sometimes when the tongue and the jaw comes, everything gets covered, right? But when you stay open, again, back to the column of sound that we talked about, and I'm sure he gave her a lot of vocal exercises that allows you to access the top of your voice. There are certain exercises and things you can do to access that particular heightened sound, right? And to keep it again, resonance, 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 breath, resonance, air. That is singing support. There's not a lot of, I don't care what style you sing. There's not a lot of different things that you have to do when you sing, but you must always stay resonant. So you talk about the horn sound throughout the voice. That means that the voice is resonating. Here, 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 right? Here, the chest, here, the middle, up here is the higher part of the voice. That means that everywhere it's resonating. The air is moving where it needs to be. It's open with no impediment with the jaw and the tongue.
Basically, what he got her to do, I mean, she sort of kind of was doing it on her own, but just for a certain part of the voice, he just got her to shift the entire focus like up here.
No, up here. Yes, yes, all the way up here. And again, what I always say, he sure did, and which opened up all the other.
And speaking of high notes, so the way her songs are composed, like the high note in Ain't Nobody is an E. Um,
It's
uh,
not so high in her voice because her voice is so high.
hmm. And so generally she will be uh between E and G are like the highest parts of her song. So she's always going to find her way to one of, but I think F is like her good note. But something I think is interesting is like she has a song called Tearing It Up, where she has to do a lot of F sharps. So
Mhm.
that's her best note in her throat. But if
Mhm.
she has to do many of them, she gets like very tired. Can you
Mhm.
explain like even though it's your best note in your throat, why you will get tired having to do it over and over again?
Because the throat is not meant to do high notes over and over again. Just because it's your best and it's
Mhm.
easy, your throat is flesh. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? It's a muscle that gets if you do no matter how much you can do curls, if you do too many of them, you're gonna get tired, right? You can't, it's not meant to be abused. And like the old school diva said, you only get so many good high notes in your lifetime. You're born with a certain amount of high notes. And if you use all of them, good luck. But it's not meant to, you're just not meant to just hammer away at your instrument like that.
Mhm.
It's something like it's like leaving your voice in the dressing room. That's what we do. We practice all the high notes in the dressing room. You get out in the theater and ain't nothing left. Because you hear people all the time. So
Yes. And so how, and speaking of that, so like G is like according in her recordings, G is like the last note she can really like have some vibrato on. She has a B flat. She squeaked a C once. I've never heard one after that, but like B flat is like the ceiling. But the A flat, A, B flat are just straight tone.
Right.
Ah. So
Right.
how do the extremities of the range work?
Well, if you can't vibrate on it, it's probably not your note, right?
Mhm.
Like it's just you pushing the chords together to make a sound. I mean, whistle is different. That's a different thing. But the
Mhm.
extremities of the voice, well, first of all, the extremity of the voice are never meant to be in public. They are only for the practice room, privacy of your own home. You
I
never,
love when y'all say that. I'll be like, do y'all have this note? Not in public.
not in public. It is not. That's like showing your unmentionables. You don't wear. I mean, your generation, y'all wear anything, but but you don't show that in public. Absolutely not. And again, if you're having an emotional moment and you just want to, sing something that's out of the stratosphere, that's different. But again, the chords can only stretch but so far, before they top out. But that's pretty damn good for F sharp to be your in G. And if you can, but you have to have a little bit over you have to have a couple of notes over the high note, right? In order for the highest note to sound solid. So you always warm up a third or whatever if you can higher.
Oh, well, that would make sense why B flat is her limit, because G is her okay.
Exactly, exactly. So if you can, like I C high for me is the top of my range. Now I can sing C sharp, I can do D, but I very rarely warm that part of my voice up.
So do you have an F if we have to go up a third?
No, I am not. But you know what? I have gone to E flat,
Hmm.
but I can't take myself up there. I have to have my teacher take me up there,
Okay.
and it's not pretty. It's,
Does
it's
it, does it have vibrato?
it depends on the day. But again, why would I? I don't care. Who
Oh
cares?
no, I'm just asking because it's just like I notice it's primarily in pop singers. I don't really hear it so much in classical singers. So like with Shaka, you know, G is the last note of vibrato, and then she does the third above that sometimes. With Tina, what was her good note? I think hers was E. She may squeak out at A flat. So I've never heard that y'all go to like a part of the voice that just is straight tone.
Right now, because we can't do
Mhm.
that. We just can't just holler like those girls can. It's got to be good. Well,
Yeah.
allegedly,
And speaking of straight tones, this is actually the last question.
Mhm.
So, I will play a clip of her singing something 30 years apart, and then I will ask the question.
That is pretty fabulous.
Yes, but you saw the voice got a little texture that if the longer she had to sustain it, she was getting
Yes.
tired.
She was getting tired, right? Because it's a little undersupported. You got to support those. You got to. You can't just like scream that or push those notes out. It's the same. But when she went into the head voice and flipped it, it was spun. You can do both.
All right, and here's her singing it 30 years later. She was a little flat, but
But for her to be able to still do, yeah, she was. Again,
but
it's strength. She didn't have the power that she used to have in
but
her body.
which leads into my question. So something that I noticed over the course of her career, and I actually noticed this with just women, period. So at her prime, her highest note with vibrato was G, and then it lowered to F. And then like now that F, as you saw, like a straight tone. And like if you've heard her recently, a lot of the voice is sort of kind of straight tone. So can you explain like how like how the straight tone develops over time with age.
Because I think it's a choice, a control. People straight tone, they hold the chords together because they can hold the note, they can control the note, and when they let it go, it either gets flat, sharp, it wobbles, when they just release the air. So when you stop the air and hold the throat, ah, that's how people try to control
Mm,
tone. And then when you let it go, when you let it vibrate, Lord knows what's going to happen.
okay, so
I think
that
with age, people hold the voice to control it. I think when you age, or when you have vocal damage, or when you're aging, when you have an aging voice.
Mhm.
So instead of just releasing the sound, like when you're young, you make a sound and you release the sound. But when you get older, you hold on to the throat, you hold on to the chords, you hold on to the notes so that you can control them. But when you have to let them go
Mm,
and let the air move and vibrate the chords, that's when you get sometimes a wobble or the intonation lags, either sharp or flat.
okay. That would actually make a lot of sense as because it's also like, yeah, she takes the straight tone quality with throughout the entire voice now. And last question, I think she's the best way person, one of the best examples of this. What would you consider a bottom up voice?
Mm, a voice that has a lot of chest in the sound, and a voice that you can take high up through the middle voice, through the range. So before you have to flip it over, it can go very, very, very high before you have to flip it over into head. And you have more notes at the bottom part of your instrument. To me, that's a bottom up voice versus a top down voice. We have all the head voice and all the spin at the top, and also, that I never think of voices like that. I always think of registrations like that. Like if I'm thinking, well, okay, how do I say this? I have to speak about my own voice. My voice is a top-down voice where it likes to sit higher and soar higher. I don't have a lot of weight in my bottom voice, but I can sing in my chest voice. That's not really where my voice, or like a spinto voice is a bottom up voice. What we call a spinto in classical pushed. So although some people would say I'm a spinto because of the size of my instrument. I said that's a good question. I wouldn't say Shaka was a bottom up singer because she's got all those high notes.
I think because she takes the chest sound, like when I think of top down, I think of mm, like a Denise Williams or like a
Shantae Moore?
mm, I
No,
will,
very
not really. Um, I'm just thinking of women who like to like a Jennifer Hudson. I would consider a bottom up. They like to take that sound.
up.
Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like Shaka likes to take it all the way up. I think like when I think of a bottom up singer, for the most part, in like non-classical music, I think of people who like to be really, really loud. So like a Shirley Bassey, you
Mm-hmm.
know, whereas like a top down, I think you get a prettier sound. So like early Whitney before she became more like in the mid and late 90s. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But that is all for me. I think let me make sure.
You always make me think about everything. Every
I
time I put a voice up, I'm like, and then I start thinking about them all day, all week.
really
Yeah.
because I just think the voice is like so fascinating. Especially I think women are more interesting than me because I'm just like, for example, like y'all can do drugs or y'all can smoke and y'all voices will be shot, but a man can do the same thing and he still for the most part sounds like himself.
Right.
I think
And
that's
also men speak at their natural speaking voice, where women are above, we're not, it's not natural. Like
Mhm.
tenor is not a natural voice in classical music. It's not a natural, it has all the compression and stuff like that. And basses. I just feel like male singers aside from a Stevie Wonder, aside from like a Frankie Lyman, like certain voice types, I just think male singers are not very interesting. And I don't know if it's because they're not required to do as much,
Hmm.
like, and maybe because Stevie Wonder wrote his own music, so it was, different in the way he styled his music. And there are other people, that we can mention, but pound for pound, if you had your choice,
I would choose women because I
oh,
also always felt like women, it's the emotional capacity. Like I remember, what am I thinking of? It can be like really, maybe Tina Turner is one of the first ones that comes to mind. When I just watched her go on stage and just let out that sound, and I remember the first opera singer I saw, Denise Grace was actually the first one on Between the Lines, but like, um, I want to say, I think it was probably Leontine Price or Jesse. It was Jesse Norman, and I was just like, "How are you that loud?" And it's just like the emotional abandon, to just create that kind of sound. And you got a man just sitting there looking pretty. I could never get into the, this is gonna be vulgar, but like when I listen to most men sing, it's like when you're like having sex and like you're almost there. Like you can't get over, you can't finish. But when I hear a woman, she gets over.
oh,
And
go right on through. Yes,
it's like give me my warm rag. That's what I hear when I hear women sing. And that's why why I find them so interesting.
yes, I agree.